Hello there, my name is Dan and the main purpose of my channel is to show people how to grow their own fruit and vegetables no matter what size garden, allotment or growing space they do indeed have. Over the last few years I've been working on a partial self-sufficiency project here in Essex, UK, and I'd love to show you how to do the same. So today I'm going to be making a video on vegetable seeds that you can sow during the month of November. The days are getting shorter now and the temperatures are indeed dropping, but there are still some seeds that you can sow. So if you like my work, please feel free to like and share, and if you'd like to be notified of any further videos I'm going to put up, please feel free to subscribe. You can see some seeds and some bulbs here, so I'm just going to pan the camera around and you can have a look at what I've got here. So we're going to talk a little bit about each one. Broad beans. Now I have two varieties here, one being Aqua Dulce Claudia and the other being Express. So quite often Aqua Dulce Claudia is the one recommended to grow at this time of year because it's early cropping. But this variety here, Express, it says is the fastest broad bean. So I'm going to be having a go at this one this year. Now if you're growing them in a more exposed location, a variety such as the Sutton, which is a dwarf variety, may benefit you, less likely to be damaged by wind, rain, etc. How would I sow broad beans? So you can direct sow them outside in fertile, well draining soil. If your soil is not well draining or indeed waterlogged, I would not suggest you sow them outside right now, but you can start them off in pots, in cell trays, either in a greenhouse or in a polytunnel, or you could even start them off inside on your windowsill. Pots this size or smaller filled with multi-purpose compost will be good. Some say that if you get your broad beans in now, you will get the crop before the black fly comes, but that one's still open to debate. The next is salad leaves. So I've got two varieties here, lettuce all the year round and lettuce winter density. I'm growing these two varieties because they are winter hardy. How would I go about growing lettuces at this time of year? A reliable way to grow lettuces at this time of year would be to utilise a windowsill propagator such as this with fresh compost, and you can sow your seeds into these cell trays and then you can put this filled propagator into a south-facing windowsill for the microclimate it will provide. You can use bigger pots if you want, and then that way the plants will get bigger and you can be picking lettuces from your windowsill salad leaves. And then if the plants get too big for in there, or you want to put them outside, you indeed can. Just harden them off first and then you'll have lovely lettuces to eat. If you're growing a non-hardy lettuce, then you can leave it inside and then you can just keep picking it throughout the winter. Don't put it outside because if it's not hardy, it won't survive. Spring onions. Okay, so generally Performer is the variety recommended for growing at this time of year, but last year I grew two varieties, Red Beard and Feast. I did well with both of these. So the way I would grow these is to get a long thin pot, okay, put your multi-purpose compost in, then sow your seeds, and then when they're a little bit bigger, when they've grown to a good size, you can take them out the pot without damaging the roots and then put them straight in the ground. But if you germinate them in a polytunnel or a greenhouse, you'll find that this will help you very much indeed. First early peas, so varieties Meteor and Kelvedon Wonder are often recommended for growing this time of year. I grew variety Oscar last year with success. So the way I would grow them is to bring them on first in pots of multi-purpose compost in a greenhouse, polytunnel or cold frame, get them to a decent size, and then that way it's less likely that birds, mice, etc. will eat them than if you straight sow them in the ground. Covering them up with netting would be wise so they do not get eaten. Chilies, hot peppers, great fun to grow. So the way I would grow these would be to get pots of multi-purpose compost, sow them and then put them inside, okay, then put them on a south-facing windowsill. They are not frost hardy. Two varieties I'm going to be growing this year, Onavec, which I will show you an example of in a moment, and Basque, I think that's how you say it. This is an Onavec plant here. Some of you may remember the good crop of Onavec hot peppers that I had this year. Japanese greens, Komatsuna, which I grew last year with considerable success, and Pak Choi. The way I would grow Komatsuna and Pak Choi would be to start it off in a greenhouse or a polytunnel in cell trays of multi-purpose compost. You can then plant it out into the ground in the greenhouse or polytunnel. If you don't have a greenhouse or a polytunnel, you could plant it out into a cold frame, or you could plant it out into the open ground if you wanted. Ideally, this would be better if you were in a warmer, more sheltered location, but if you don't have that, make the best of what you've got. Herbs such as chives, basil, dill, parsley and oregano. Now the way I would grow these would be to grow them in pots of multi-purpose compost and keep them inside during the winter months. Onions, varieties such as Troy, Shakespeare, Radar, Electric, Shenshu, all great onions for growing this time of year. You can sow onions outside at this time of year, but don't sow them if your soil is waterlogged or very poor draining. If this is the case, you could consider growing them in a container of a growing medium you have made sure is suitable for this purpose, so well draining and fertile. Shallots, a variety such as Germa, would be great for this. Garlic, this is variety Casablanca. You could also try extra early white. Once again, do not sow outside if your soil is poor draining or waterlogged. You can once again grow them in a container of well draining, fertile growing medium. Land cress. Now this is a great one. I grew this last year and it's really tasty, adds a nice zing. You can put it in salads or put it in sandwiches. Very much worthwhile growing, and you could straight sow this outside now. I did so last year with success. One thing land cress really would be well grown in would be one of these polystyrene containers. The extra warmth would benefit it and it would make it really easy to pick. Kale, so variety Nero di Toscana is generally recommended for this time of year. I have that here. I've also got Westland Autumn, although I would say any kale you wanted to grow, you could grow that. This here is variety Red Russian. I have some in a container here and some here as well, and also some in the ground here in the polytunnel. Here is how I would grow kale at this time of year. Would grow it in cell trays, in multi-purpose compost, in a polytunnel or a greenhouse or a cold frame. If I didn't have access to any of those, I would germinate them in the containers on a windowsill inside. And then when they get a little bit bigger, you can plant them out. Harden them off first though by gradually accustoming them to the outside temperatures by bringing the pots out during the day and then bringing them back in at night. Chard and spinach. I have varieties here: leaf beet chard or perpetual spinach, forward hook giant chard, chard rhubarb chard Vulcan, organic golden chard leaf beet. Grow the same as I explained for kale. One thing about chard is some people say it's too bitter for their taste. Well, if you grow it during the winter, it doesn't tend to be as bitter, so you may like chard after all. This is one I grew last year: corn salad lamb's lettuce, variety Kale de Louvière. I hope that's how you say it. It's a very tasty lettuce and low growing, and the way I would grow this would be to once again bring it on in a greenhouse or a polytunnel in containers of multi-purpose compost and then plant out when a little bit bigger. Radishes, now an interesting thing to grow, and I would grow them in a greenhouse or a polytunnel or indeed a cold frame, or if you haven't got those you could plant them on a sunny windowsill inside. A tray this size would be ideal, and even if they don't make much size, you can eat the tops. Turnips, grow them the same way as radishes, and once again, if they don't make much size, you can again eat the tops. Carrots, now I overwintered carrots last year in my other polytunnel. I grew them in these polystyrene containers. I straight sowed them variety Manchester table carrot, and I got carrots earlier the next year than I would have otherwise. And once again, if they don't make much size, you can eat the tops. Beetroot, this is variety White Albino. How would I grow it? This one is very much for the enthusiasts. So what you can do is get trays such as this, and you can fill them with multi-purpose compost and then plant your beetroot seeds into them. You can then take them inside, which they will germinate, and then bring them out a few weeks later, let them mature a little bit, and then proceed to plant them out in the early spring. Once again, by utilising microclimates, you can grow them in a container, in a greenhouse or a polytunnel or a cold frame. Quite an interesting thing to do. And when the soil warms up and they proceed to grow, you can then get your beetroot a little bit earlier. And once again, if they don't make much size, you can eat the tops. There you go, plenty of things for you to be getting on with. Now, one thing I wish to say, got to remember that we are in autumn now and winter is not far away. You don't have to be too keen, okay? I'm very much an enthusiast, as are probably many of you listening to this, but don't be too keen, okay? If you're living in a part of the UK or indeed another part of the world where it's very cold, wait until the spring. Or make sure you utilise your microclimates very well, okay? You're very aware that I like to use my 2 polytunnels. I've used cold frames in the past, and make use of windowsills inside, okay? Utilise your microclimates well and your chances of success are much higher. One thing that I really like to get over in my videos is that there is gardening for everyone. There's food growing for everyone, okay? And if all you have is a few windowsills in your house, then so be it. But that doesn't mean you can't grow anything, okay? Salad leaves, vegetable leaves, okay, grown on a windowsill are really, really effective. And at this time of year, this sort of gardening really comes into its own. And you'll be surprised if you put effort into this, just how much food you can grow on a couple of windowsills, okay? Very important to remember. Okay then, so there we go. That's the video finished. If you like my work, please feel free to like, share and subscribe. And you can always check me out on Dan_Home Gardens on Instagram if indeed you're interested. Thank you very much for viewing, and I'll see you next time.